I want to welcome you on behalf of the Lunenburg Roar Task Force. The task force is a group of citizens who got together last spring to ask the question, what can we do to make a difference in Lunenburg? The group is made up of clergy, police, fire, educators, medical and clinical practitioners, members of the United Parish and Pilgrim Covenant Church, and members at large. We brainstormed and we visited other communities to see what they were doing to help the opioid crisis. Some of us in the group have been personally affected by the opioid problem, or addiction in general, so there's a lot of passion on this team. We are all learning, and here we are tonight. If you don't know someone or aren't related to someone who has a problem with drugs, you are unusual. If you have not been touched somehow by it, you are unusual. This problem affects everyone, no matter your class, or race, or religion, or education. Drug addiction is real, and it is happening in this Lunenburg that we love. Our three main goals tonight are to increase awareness, to provide you with information and resources. We are very excited tonight to have Ashley Caleri. Ashley, where are you? There, did I say it right? Ashley is Jim Walberg's assistant, and she is here with us this evening to introduce his film, If Only. Ashley.
Hi. Thank you all for coming. This is a really fabulous turnout. You should be proud to be in this great community that's willing to come out. Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. This is a great turnout. I've been traveling around with Jim to many communities throughout the country, and there are large crowds and there are very small crowds, and it doesn't matter to Jim what the size of the crowd is, but he's always particularly excited to see a community that's willing to come out and have this conversation. So, unfortunately, due to a scheduling conflict, he wasn't able to be here tonight, but here I am.
And we're glad you're here.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Ruth and all the work that she's put into coordinating tonight. Jim created this film to do simply what it is that you're going to do tonight, to sort of start a conversation. It sort of came out of a conversation that he had with a good friend of his, and they wrote the script in a matter of minutes because it's an issue that they're both very well acquainted with. And so they're really happy to be able to use it as a tool to help people begin a conversation around this important issue. So, we're going to start the film, and after the film, I'll just say a few more words and then let you have that conversation with each other. So, thanks.
It's not for laws I've broken, that bitter tears I've wept, but solemn vows I've spoken, and promises unkept. It's not for sins committed, my heart is full of rue, but gentle acts omitted, kind deeds I did not do. I have outlived the blindness, the selfishness of youth, the canker of unkindness, the cruelty of truth, the sneering heart of rudeness. Thy mercies, great and small. I've come to reckon goodness, the greatest gift of all. Let us be helpful ever to those who are in need. In each new day endeavor to do some gentle deed. For faults beyond our grieving, what kindliness atone. On earth thy love achieving, a heaven of our own. Isaac?
Yes.
Did you have any thoughts?
On?
How am I just finished reading?
I liked it. Yeah, I liked it.
You did?
Yeah.
And what about it exactly did you like?
The subtext.
Which was?
Living with regret.
Robert Williams Service was the poet. We'll be studying him all next week. Everyone grab a book on your way out. Have a good weekend and be safe.
coming tonight, right?
I don't know. I haven't asked my mom yet. I doubt she'll even let me go.
Bro, this is going to be the biggest party of our lives, okay? You're not missing it.
I know, but what am I supposed to say to her?
I don't know.
Just tell her you're staying at my house. She calls my mom will lie for us.
There you go.
Come on, grow a pair, will ya? You know I get when I'm wasted. You wouldn't want to miss that, would you?
Alright, I'll be there.
My man. And hey, don't forget to bring something, alright?
I don't know if I have anything, and if I do, how do I know it's the good stuff?
Anything with a label that reads, may cause drowsiness, or don't drink alcohol beverages, alright?
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'll pick up at 8.
Okay. I'll be right there.
What's wrong with you? Why are you so quiet?
Can I go over to Corey's later to study?
You want to study on a Friday night?
Yeah, well, we have a big math test coming up. She wanted to know if I could help her study.
You two been spending a lot of time together lately? Is it anything serious?
No, just friends.
Just friends, huh?
Yeah, just friends. She has a thing for calling her phone.
Okay.
Okay. I can go?
You can go. You gotta be home by 11:30.
12 and you got a deal.
In your dreams.
alright?
Dude, screw him. He's an amateur. Why would you take that many pills if you couldn't handle it? He's looking to get my ass in trouble for going out like that.
I talked to his sister this morning. He's fine. It wasn't the drugs. John has seizures all the time.
Still say he's an amateur. Look, I'll catch up with you guys later, alright?
You want to skip?
Screw it.
I can't stand this girl. She's such a snob.
Megan? She said the quietest girl in school. What is that?
I'm on my doctor said they're supposed to help me focus better in school. It's all BS.
So why do you take them?
Because they give me a buzz. And I need a buzz to get through this day. You know that. So, here, take one.
What are you two doing here?
It's our study hall.
Isaac, have you got your physical done yet?
No, Coach, I haven't.
What are you waiting on? Basketball season starts in 2 weeks. You can't play unless you get your physical.
Okay, Coach, I'll make sure to tell my mom to schedule me one.
Make sure. I don't want to have to bench my starting point guard. Get to class.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Mom.
Hi. Dinner's gonna be ready too.
I'm starving.
How was school?
It was good. I think I aced my math test.
Oh, that's great. What are you doing?
Hungry.
I just said dinner's gonna be ready. Isaac! Go wash up.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Just had a long day. Coach Gunn says that I need to get a physical in order to join the team, so can you schedule me one, please?
Yeah, I already did. It's tomorrow morning.
Oh, good. Thanks. This is so good.
Thank you.
When can I go to an adult doctor?
When you're an adult.
Isaac? How have you been?
Pretty good.
Miss Diaz, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Just a routine physical?
Yeah.
All right, well, you'll be in and out of here in no time. You can go inside, take a seat. I'll be right there.
I need you to come, Mom.
Okay.
Doctor, can I have a word?
What is it?
It's Isaac. His behavior lately it's been odd. He's not acting like himself.
Thanks for the ride, Corey.
What are you doing tonight?
Nothing planned.
Call me if you want to hang out.
Hey, do you have any more of those pills you gave me the other day?
All right. That's good?
Perfect, all right? Thank you, I'll call you.
Yeah. Hello?
Miss Diaz? It's Dr. Edwards. How are you?
I'm a nervous wreck.
I'm looking at Isaac's test results. I have bad news. Isaac tested positive for opiates and marijuana.
Okay. Are you sure? Because I heard those tests when you're back inaccurate at times.
Free now, Miss Diaz. We use the best lab in the country. If we need Miss Diaz, we can assist you with resources to help Isaac find the help he needs before it progresses. And in my experience, it usually always progresses.
I would like that, thank you.
Okay, I'll have Laura send over some information ASAP. Okay?
Okay, doctor, thank you. Hi.
What's wrong? Mom, what's wrong?
I had Dr. Edwards drug test you.
You what?
Yeah. And your test results came back positive.
You know that's a mistake, Mom.
How long? How long you been doing them? How long? I said how long? How long, I said? I said how long? What did I do wrong?
Say it, Mom.
What did I do wrong?
You didn't do anything.
I must have done something wrong. I tried so hard. I tried so hard with you. Oh my God, I'm so scared. I don't recognize you. Where did you get them? Where did you get them? Please talk to me. Are Connor and Corey doing them too? Is that all of your friends doing them too? This is a nice place. Huh? Everything's gonna be okay.
Why are you doing this to me? I'm not an addict. It was one time.
You could have died, Isaac. I'm not gonna let that happen to you.
Stop being dramatic, Mom.
Isaac, are you ready?
I love you.
I love you too.
I love you.
Robert William Service was a British-Canadian poet and writer. He was often called the Bard of the Yukon. He's best known for his poem, The Shooting of Dan McGrath, which we will be reviewing today in class. Please open up your books to page 70.
All right, so as everybody can see, we have a new addition today. This is Isaac. I want you guys to, why don't we go around and everybody can introduce themselves.
I'm June. I started drinking when I was about 12, 13. Just wrong group of friends.
My name's Adam. I started drinking about 2 years ago. I'm 18 now. And,
Older brother friends had it. Did it. Now I'm just angry without it.
I said I could be a model.
Yeah, I'm Mark, alcoholic. Smoke my fourth time being in detox.
I was 14. I saw how my mom acted after she took her medication. I wanted to see what it was like.
My name's Sarah, and I
I began to have an alcohol problem when I was 10.
Listen, I just really want to thank you guys for your honesty and making Isaac feel welcome. You guys got about an hour before your next group, so we'll take a break. Hold on, Isaac. How you feeling?
Like I don't belong here and this is a waste of time?
Maybe. But maybe you do.
You heard your stories. I went to a party once and got high. Big deal. Who doesn't do that my age?
A lot of people. It's beautiful, isn't it?
It's a bunch of dead trees.
Actually, they're not dead. They're very much alive. They're what's known as deciduous trees. They shed their leaves. It's like a defense mechanism against harsh conditions. They have these broad, thin leaves that are, really susceptible to damage. So they just let them go. But when conditions improve, they come back, healthier and stronger than before. Not much different than you.
What?
I'll see you in an hour.
Isaac's mother? I was just hoping you had his fingers.
Actually, I don't. I have dinner plans, so...
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, it'll only take a second. It's actually about Connor.
You said you were Isaac's mother, right?
That's right.
Oh, God, what a shame. My Connor told me all about you having to put your boy in rehab. At least there he won't be able to influence other kids to do drugs. Actually, I told my son he can't hang around with yours any longer. I'm sorry.
How dare you?
How dare I?
I came here to let you know your son is also doing drugs, and as a concerned parent, I just thought you should know.
Now you listen to me. Don't you come around here trying to point the finger at other people. When just because your son is a screw-up, God, it doesn't mean that mine is.
I'm not pointing my finger at anyone. I'm handling my son and our issues. But I wanted to talk to you mother to mother so we could see what's going on with our kids.
Excuse me. You know nothing of my son. Well, I'd appreciate if you leave now. Miss Diaz, have a good day. I really hope you find a way how to handle that boy. Bye. You ready to go? Because I am starving. Okay. Honey, come on, we're going to hear you. We should probably have the headphones on. So let's go. Time to go.
What's up, buddy? It's nice to see you smiling. How you feeling?
A little cold. Oh,
Better? Yeah? Listen, don't take this personally, okay? But I do not want to see you back. You understand me? Huh?
you and me both.
Excuse me, Bob. I need Isaac to come with me for a minute.
Sure. Why?
You have a visitor.
Oh, Dave? Make sure you Mom? What happened? What happened? What's wrong? What's wrong? Mom, what's wrong?
Honey, Connor was found dead yesterday.
What?
I'm so sorry.
What? What do you mean?
He overdosed, and his mom found him in his room. I'm so sorry. Connor's gone. He's gone, sweetheart. I'm so sorry.
My classmate, my best friend. It was Connor who, on my very first day of school, convinced me to try out for the basketball team. He said I needed to put my lanky arms to good use. You know, a lot of times when we're young, we think we're invincible. We're not.
In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming, buddy.
Mr. Yes. Thank you so much for coming to see us. We're so sorry for your loss. Take good care of this boy. Our lives are so fragile and precious. We expect to do everything that we can for him. If there's anything we can do, please don't hesitate to ask. That day, I should have listened to you. That day you came by, I should have listened. But instead I went to dinner. While my son was alone in his room. If only Thank you guys for coming.
Take care.
If only I knew that all your words were true, that everything would be alright, my heart would find it to the light. If only I knew to put aside my pride, that I had let the Lord decide, held his hand and watched him guide. If only left with this painful emptiness, I fell on my knees to confess. Everything good lost in darkness, I failed to realize that I was blessed. So I wait for that day when I can say that I'm sorry. If only I knew that all your words were true, that everything would be alright, my heart would find it to the light. If only I knew to put aside my pride, that I had let the Lord decide, held his hand and watched him guide. If only all my hope now fades and dies away. I struggle to find the words to say. All the promises I failed to keep, I try to trust that heaven's at your feet. So I wait for that day when I can say that I'm sorry. If only I knew that all your words were true, that everything would be alright, my heart would find it to the light. If only I knew to put aside my pride, that I had let the Lord decide, I held his hand and watched him guide. If only,
When will I see you again? All day long I'm thinking of you. So crazy lying sleeping, begging and pleading. I was wrong. I'll take all the blame for this. Feelings never played a part. You meant nothing to me. Swayed my precarious heart. Don't give me
this one, because they said it would be live. So, this is the part when Jim usually talks about all those people at the end of the film. So, he's been taking this film, as I mentioned, around to different communities for a couple of years now. And one of the main points that he highlights when he meets people is how important these families who've lost people to overdose are. So he sent out an email when he was making that film to his friend Louise and asked if she could reach out to some people that she knew because he would like to incorporate them into the film. And hundreds of people replied to her email and said that they would like to be involved because they lost someone to an overdose and they didn't know what to do. They just wanted to do something. So that last scene there in the church, that church was filled with families who had been to their daughter, son, brother, father's funeral. And they sat through that scene and they participated in the making of that film because they felt like it was something important that they could do to help people understand the gravity of the situation. So I have had the good fortune of getting to know these folks as well through my work with Jim. And they're amazing people. They're like soldiers. They just get up every day and they do everything they can to keep people who have not had to live with this tragedy from having to do that. And we're lucky enough to have a few of them with us tonight. And so nothing I say will be of any importance in comparison to the other folks you'll hear tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to one of these friends that I've had the good fortune of making in this process. Dave is a native, right, of Lunenburg, and so he's going to talk to you a little bit about his experience.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to thank Roy for putting this together, the town of Lunenburg and the high school themselves. So, as Ashley explained, myself and my wife Michelle were honored to be part of this film. It has definitely hit the points that it needed to, right? An excellent film to start discussion points within your family. I am a former resident, a high school graduate of Lunenburg, 1985, and as you can see on the film, lost our daughter Alyssa at the age of 20. She was in the school system here up until 3rd grade. Then we moved a couple of towns away. And I'll say this briefly. So, when you leave and you leave your hometown, sometimes you're lucky enough to stay. Sometimes you want to come back and visit. Sometimes you don't get a chance to. I will be, a resident of this town for the remainder of my life because I still get emotional. So it's been 4 years. But Alyssa is buried here in Lunenburg. So she will be a resident of this town. So, it's important that you take this information, and I will tell you, Alyssa was very bright, vibrant, no different than any other school girl in these communities, and I know these towns. I grew up here. I know how it operates, right? We all have cliques. You have your athletes, you have your bright kids, you have your band members, you have your artsy kids, you have now robotic kids, whatever it is, right? And it's no different from town to town. I will tell you the best thing that you can do, and we were not prepared for this, is become educated. This is a stepping stone for that. The more you know, the better off you will be. And like like I said, this is important. It affects everybody. You know, whether you want to know it or not, everybody in this room knows somebody that has an addiction. And it doesn't necessarily have to be opiates. You know, there are all types of addictions. And you have to be that person to stand forward and show support no matter what. And the more you're educated, there's going to be a phenomenal panel here. You know, utilize the resources in the panel that we have here tonight. Again, it's just a stepping stone. You know, we do a great job, or are the best that we can, like Ashley said, every day to get up and help those to become educated and look for resources and help. Small towns, unfortunately, carry a lot of stigma attached to people who step forward or afraid to come forward and say, hey, my kids have a problem, or I have a problem. We have to get over that. You know, be a leader in your community, okay? Be that person that people can go to, find that resource. Don't be afraid to step forward. We're all in it together. So, the more you can do as a community, the better off your school will be. And you don't want to have to be similar to me, right? You don't want to go down this path of, you know, I love talking at schools, and I know people that know me, I'm chatty, right? You put me in something that's good to discuss, I'll chat it up. But this is not the forum that I saw myself, you know, being involved in. But I am. So I have to do whatever I can in my own power to help everybody. So, you know, again, get educated. You know, that I wish I was more educated around the issues that were presented at the time when my daughter got involved with this, right? And those dynamics have changed a little bit. You know, unfortunately, I'd like to say, you know, we've got a handle on it, but it's not, right? Fentanyl is a big thing. You know, when my daughter was involved with it, it was Percocets, right? Prescription medication, then heroin, now it's fentanyl. You know, and these guys will tell you, there are no more, you know, when she was growing up, there was Narcan, there's other things, now it's changed to a different level. There's no do-overs. So I will tell you, be educated. You know, don't be afraid to confront your kids, right? You love them, right? They're going to disagree with you, they're going to fight you, they're going to do everything, you know. And this film is very representative of a lot of small towns around here. Not my fault. They're lying, or whatever it is, right? Basketball star, or whatever. Be educated. You know, she took steps because of, you know, behavior was wrong. Behavior is not, you know, it's one thing, but when as a high school kid growing up, you know, okay, you work hard, you go, you're an athlete, you do what I do. I fall asleep at the end of the day with the English book. Hopefully my English professor's not here. So from high school, you fall asleep with that on your head, right? So typical behavior. But the opiate thing is a different animal, right? So it goes basically undetected if you don't know the symptoms. I'm going to tell you, get educated. I can't say it enough. And again, it's a great turnout. I've talked at a couple different schools. With less of a turnout doesn't mean that it's not impactful, but there's a wide range of here, from grandparents to, you know, high school kids to middle age to whatever, right? Learn. Don't turn an eye, you know, shoulder away from it, right? Do everything you can to be that person, right? To help. You know, every little bit helps. So, again, you know, I mean, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'll take this time as an opportunity while I'm talking to you. Myself and my wife and a great group of board members, we do have, you'll see it in the handouts, you know, self-promotion, but we have a peer recovery support center, Alyssa's Place, named after my daughter, the AED Foundation, Assist, Educate, and Defeat. We're one of the few local resources, you know, granted Gardner's not as local as you think it is from Lunenburg, but we're willing to come anywhere, have discussions, whatever you want, right? There's a phone number to be reached, email, if you need help, reach out, right? And we'll provide that direction and support, okay? So, again, thank you for having us. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day and evening to come and see this. It's extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Every time I see that movie, it touches me in a new way. And I think you are so brave to get up and share yourself with us. It's going to make a difference to somebody. Now I'd like to invite the rest of our panel to come up. They're sitting over here, so I think you want to come over here, up to the stage. We have some of our police and fire, a doctor, and some young adults in recovery. A very brave group of people. And Mike, oh, there you are.
I'm the biggest.
We decided that we would let these folks introduce themselves. Jack, do you want? Okay, would you come get this? We're going to have a question and answer period after the panel is done, and we'll bring mics to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Mike Duggan. I'm a person in long-term recovery. What that means for me is I haven't had a drink or drug since April 14, 2009, by the grace of God. Very happy to be part of this conversation. For those who organized the event, thank you. These conversations are so critical and also so difficult to have. So I'm blown away by the response of the community that has come out here tonight. To spend time to really watch this film and engage in this conversation because we're losing so many people to this disease. As you saw in the film, you know, the families at the end, I as well as Ashley have been honored by getting to know so many of those families. I have friends at the end of the film that passed away that I got sober with along the way in different periods of time that unfortunately did not make it. And just growing up, I've lost so many friends to overdoses and family to accidental overdoses that it's just hard to really count, unfortunately. Dave, thank you for sharing. I can't even imagine finding the words and this courage that it takes to get up there and share your story in your community growing up here. It's just such a tragedy. Just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself and make quick. I grew up in a pretty typical Irish Catholic family. There was certainly a little dysfunction there, especially on my father's side, my mother would say. But ultimately, I had 3 brothers, so there was 4 boys in my family. So we played a lot of sports. That was in a lot of ways the way I stayed out of trouble. Playing sports growing up, I played hockey, football, lacrosse. I love contact sports. I don't know if that goes along with it at all, but I love the thrill of hitting people and the rush produced from that. But it really kept me out of trouble and it really helped me find my place in life. And alcohol in my family growing up was very socially acceptable. It was no big deal. It was really part of the norm. Is how my family, at a lot of family parties, there was a lot of Irish music. There was a lot of drinking. My mother was the older of her siblings, so my aunts and uncles were younger. They were in high school when I was, growing up through those years. So to me, it was very attractive as well. And I started experimenting with alcohol and marijuana at a very young age. And I think that's a very important message to hit home because my drug of choice was prescription opioids, but the experimentation started a lot earlier than that, and that was with alcohol and marijuana. And I thought that was not a big deal. I thought it wasn't going to lead anywhere. I thought it was very normal. I thought it was the only way for me to really have fun. But ultimately, it put me at a higher risk, especially with the fact that when I was growing up, I had a functional alcoholic for a father, and alcoholism and addiction really ran rampant, especially on my father's side of the family as well. So I was certainly a high-risk candidate there. And then so when it came to the point of getting injured senior year playing hockey, and I broke my wrist playing Hingham, Massachusetts, At that point, the solution for the pain was prescription opioid pain medication. It was around the time that OxyContin first came out in the late 90s, early 2000s, and there was no lesser alternatives that was given. There was no questions that was being asked of me. It was, you're in pain. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much pain are you in? Because they implemented pain at the 5th vital sign at that time. I self-diagnosed myself. They wrote me a prescription. There was no education. There was no questions. There was no family history. There was no lesser alternatives. It was just the immediate solution. And it took me out of sports, that injury, for the rest of my senior year. I got into Bentley College to play football, and the rest of my senior year was focused on just having a good time and partying. And I didn't understand that when I was taking these drugs or how addictive they were. A lot of doctors, physicians at that time were not properly educated. They were being mismarketed by the pharmaceutical companies, saying that these drugs are safe, that you can't become addicted. All you do is keep increasing the dosage until the pain goes away. So there's a lot of false information that was being thrown around. My family didn't grow up in a generation that had access to these types of drugs when they were growing up in their generation, so they weren't properly equipped to be able to warn us of these things. We didn't have these types of discussions at that time in this community to be able to warn parents about what was hitting the streets and what kids had access to. And ultimately, I became addicted to these pills before getting into college, and it completely controlled my life. I went in there, I was a honest student in high school. I went into one of the best business schools in the country, playing D2 football, but it wasn't easy for me to find my place in college like it was in high school. For me, I gravitated back towards my old community with my friends, who a lot of them were getting high. And as soon as I found out what withdrawal symptoms looked like, I started to live in fear, and fear controlled the rest of my life up to the point of me getting into long-term recovery this time. But just to kind of speed up as fast as possible, it was a long road. There was a lot of shame. I was embarrassed. I hated myself. I was alone. I pushed everybody who cared about me away, including my family. My mother was alone. She didn't know who to ask for help. She felt like people were going to judge her and look down upon her as a mother, that she didn't do a good enough job raising me as her son. It was difficult. When you deal with this type of disease, people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to ask for help. But the fact of the matter is that I don't know a family nowadays who isn't affected by addiction. I don't. It's everywhere. And it's important to talk, it's important to communicate, to ask for information, to combat this thing. You don't have to do this alone, because the reality of the situation is, recovery is possible. People do get better, and there is hope at the end of the day, but you have to invite help in. Addiction is a disease of isolation. It truly is. The opposite of addiction is human connection. One of the most important things about me getting well was getting connected to resources, was getting connected to the right people, was learning how to have fun in recovery with kids that were my age, that were not trying to use or get high, that weren't trying to drink or smoke weed, that were just learning how to live life without having to put something in their body to feel better about themselves or to cope with life and all the difficulties that life presented. So, I'm grateful to be here tonight. I'm looking forward to the Q&A. If anybody has any questions for me directly, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
We're going to hear from Lunenburg's Fire and Police.
Who's on first? Definitely. Hi, my name is Ken Jones. I'm a captain on the fire department in Lunenburg. I've grown up in Lunenburg and basically lived here all my life. I see a lot of familiar faces out there in the audience. So Ruthie Ann asked, somebody from the fire department to come speak, give you a few statistics, and I honestly, what some of these other people have to offer is to me a lot more important than listening to me. So I'll give you a few statistics. I'll say my piece and I'll
move the mic in front of you a little more.
Closer? Can you hear me better now? Yeah. All right. So in Lunenburg, obviously we're not immune to this opioid crisis, the drug problem. It's a small town, but we see it here. Just like some of the other places do on a I would say, a smaller scale. But it's still here. So from January of 2014 to date, Lunenburg's had approximately 43 drug overdoses, or we call them poisonings because it's, you know, it is a toxic substance. So those numbers are based on EMS run reports. Some of the statistics as far as the Narcan goes are a little bit difficult to mine out of the run reports. So, you know, we carry Narcan, the police carry Narcan, and it is used you know, fairly frequently. As far as overdose-related deaths, in 2014 there were 2. In 2015 there were 2, and 1 in 2016. And to date we haven't had any in 2017. You know, so I guess for me, it's, as a first responder, it's easy to put up a wall, and we sort of all do it because, you know, we're called to, you know, pretty horrible things all the time. So you get accustomed to kind of putting up a wall, and you know, it's easy not to pay attention. It's easy for your own protection. But then you go to houses that you know, it's your neighbor that lives across the street, and you have to give him Narcan and wake him up. Or, you know, it's somebody you went to high school with. So that really brings it home, and it tears down that wall. So it becomes personal. And I think, you know, listening to Dave talk as a parent of 3 girls that are growing up, it really scares the hell out of me. It's pretty terrifying. So I just, you know, I'm glad that everybody came out tonight. Obviously, I'm here to answer any questions if anybody has anything. But that's basically all I have to offer right now.
Good evening. I'm Detective Sergeant Jeffrey Thibodeau from the Lunenburg Police Department. With me is Officer Siobhan Zarate, our Community Outreach Officer / School Resource Officer. Also present is Chief James Marino. I'd just like to welcome you here tonight. I have more of a prepared written statement, not so much off the cuff as colleagues have here. But I just wanted to, you know, basically point out the points that we at the Lunenburg Police Department have, just so I don't forget on my rolling down. We're committed to battling the opiate addiction within our community. Opiate addiction is killing our loved ones in record numbers. These drugs are destroying families and ruining the lives of so many around us. The officers of the Lunenburg Police Department want to ensure the safety of all individuals and protect the quality of life for our citizens. Opiate abuse sometimes leads most users to commit criminal acts to support their addictions, most of which would not have been committed, these acts, if they were not addicted. These acts include shoplifting, robbery, breaking into homes and vehicles, or stealing from loved ones to acquire items of value to support their costly addictions. The Lunenburg Police Department is committed to helping those who suffer from all kinds of addictions. All officers of the Lunenburg Police Department on patrol carry and are trained to administer life-saving Narcan. Also, at the Lunenburg Police Department, in the front of the Public Safety Building, is a prescription pill drop box located that you can safely drop off all your prescriptions, and we'll safely dispose of them for you. For those suffering from addiction, and for the families of those suffering who are seeking treatment but do not know where to look or how to take the first step, the Lunenburg Police Department has resources that can help. A lot of times, family members of those addicted can petition the local district court for an involuntary commitment issued by a judge to receive treatment. By partnering with the members of the Lunenburg Resources for Opiate Awareness and Recovery Task Force, the Lunenburg Police Department has acquired multiple resources that specialize in treatment and recovery. At the end of the forum, myself, Officer Zarate, and Chief Marino will be available for any questions or concerns that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're safe, please, guys. I'm bringing the mic down to this end of the table because we have 2 young adults from Lunenburg who very bravely volunteered to share their stories with you.
All right, can everybody hear me? Yeah? My name is Mike Donahue. I grew up in Lunenburg, graduated from Lunenburg High School in 2011. I've been in recovery for almost 4 years now, which means the same as Mike said, is I haven't had a drink or a drug or a mind-altering substance in almost 4 years. Let's see. They gave me a topic to talk on, which was going to treatment unwillingly, or being forced into treatment, which is a very controversial subject if you ask me, but I can talk on both sides of it. Whether, in my opinion, there's no bad, there's nothing bad about getting forced to go to treatment. I've been to 2 different programs, 2 detoxes and 2 programs. The first time I was forced to go, whether it was, it was legal trouble, my lawyer suggested it, my parents highly suggested it, that's for sure. I went, but I wasn't ready. I didn't want to go, but I really didn't have a choice, So I went, but I didn't take it seriously, But for my parents, it was a sign of ease for my parents, They were definitely let down when it didn't work, but when I was gone for 21 days, the 21 days I was gone, they were at ease, They didn't have to worry about me dying or me not coming home or stealing everything they owned, all the stuff I used to do, so. So that's the way I look at it. And then there's another side, the second time I went to treatment, I thought I had tried everything. I've done 100 meetings in 100 days. I did tons of AA meetings, tons of NA meetings. I had the court slips, tried Suboxone, what else? Tried just smoking weed, tried just drinking. I thought I tried everything, And at this point, I just given up. I just knew that I was going to die a drug addict, and I just, I known people that got sober, but I just didn't think that was for me. I had no idea. I had no idea that it was possible for me to get sober. And eventually, I put my parents through a lot of stuff, and eventually it got to the point where they kicked me out. I worked with my father, he fired me, and I ended up homeless for one day. I slept in a motel for the night, and it was one of the worst nights of my life. I called my parents, begged them to let me come home. They said no. They said, if you go to treatment, you can come home. So I went to detox. They forced me to go to detox, and then when I got to detox, they said I can't come home unless I go to a 30-day program. And that was for some reason, that was the worst thing in the world. I did not want to go. But I went anyway, it's just because, and I know on the way there, we stopped and got dinner. I was with my now wife and my mom, and I said that I'm only staying for 2 weeks, and when I'm going to smoke weed the day I get home, I'll think about quitting drinking. I wasn't willing to I just didn't have any faith that anything would work. And funny thing is I've been sober ever since I left. I was ready, but I didn't know it was possible, so I'm glad I was forced to go to treatment, It worked for me. And I know, being in a community of sober people, I have a lot of friends in sobriety from all the treatments I've been to. I mean, we use the sectioning as a tool to see if people are ready to get sober, I mean, it's an involuntary thing. You go to the family, goes to the court, and they file for a Section 12 or whatever it's called, and the police come and pick them up, and they bring them to the court, and they end up doing 30 to 90 days in a place where they can't leave, and they have no choice about it. And I don't see anything wrong with it. I see it as being a really good tool. For me, the first time I was forced into treatment, I wasn't ready, but I learned what wasn't going to work. I learned that just going to meetings and sitting in the back wasn't going to work. I know that, all these things that I was trying, just drinking, just smoking, I knew it wasn't going to work. I knew that I had to commit myself completely and change myself completely if I wanted to get anywhere. And let's see. That's about it. I'll be around for questions after if anybody has any questions. If you or any loved ones have any addiction problem, I'm more than happy to give my phone number out. And Now we'll hear from her.
My name is Brittany. I'm 26 years old. So I started smoking marijuana in college about over 7 years ago. Just, as a pastime, having fun and stuff like that. I never really thought it was a problem until about 4 years in, when I thought I had a really bad hangover, and it was just the worst day of my life. It was vomiting, it was pain. I went to the emergency room. And that's when I started noticing the effects of my anxiety rising all the time, and it was just, I was in a really bad place. It was about 3.5 years ago when, after a bunch of emergency room visits, a nurse said it was cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, which not a lot of people know about, and I had no idea. They gave me a Wikipedia article on it, so not many people knew about it. I was in denial for a while. It was literally, I just, quit for a little bit, and I felt better, and I would start again, and that continued over the years. It wasn't until this year when I finally, admitted that it was a problem. I got addicted to benzos, and I was taking those to try to help the anxiety that smoking was bringing on, and nothing was helping, and I was in a lot of denial about thinking, weed helps a lot of people, but it wasn't helping me. It wasn't helping my body. It was not too long ago that my dad basically said this was the last straw. He wouldn't help me if I didn't really seek help. So I gave all my stuff to my therapist and started treatment, and I went to an outpatient program for 2 weeks and just tried to get my life back on track. In 3 days will be 3 months since I have smoked, and honestly I feel like a different person. I feel uplifted. Everything is a lot clearer, obviously, but after withdrawing from the cannabis and my benzos, it was one of the worst feelings ever. And I feel a lot better now, and I'm open for questions if anybody wants to ask, But yeah, I'm glad I'm here to let you guys know.
Dr. Brian O'Connor is next.
Good evening, and thank you for coming. I just wanted to say that I've given this talk in Westford, in Concord, in Chelmsford, and in Billerica, and the size of the crowd here is greater than all 4 of those combined, so you should really thank me. So I am going to be the educational part of this program. So I am going to start by just explaining a little bit about who I am and how I got here, and then go into a little explanation about addiction. Okay, so again, my name is Dr. Brian O'Connor. I went to Boston College and Georgetown University. I did a residency in obstetrics and gynecology at Walter Reed in Washington, D.C. Served 3 years at Fort Bragg with the 82nd Airborne as a physician, and landed in 1991 in Melrose, Massachusetts. Married, 2 kids, great job, happy as a clam. By 2004, I had 4 children at that time, and I found out that my oldest son was a heroin addict, and I was blown away by it. But I decided I was going to solve that problem once and for all. So I'm a physician. I'm in Eastern Massachusetts. I have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I'm highly motivated. So I decided I was going to find the best care that was out there and solve this problem once and for all. So we took him to a detox at McLean Hospital, and the detox lasted about 4 or 5 days. And at the end of the 4 or 5 days, I was sitting with the discharge planner, and we were trying to make a plan for what was going to happen next. And so, as I was talking to him, I paused and I asked him, I said, what's the success of your detox? And he said, well, that depends on how you measure success. So I said, well, now that I'm aware, he's aware, we've got him into this detox, he's made it through the detox, he is now drug-free. I said, what's the chance that this is not going to be a problem in his life? So he said, well, probably about 1%. And I said, no, I want your success rate. And I learned two very important things that day. The first is that detox is not treatment. Detox is an opportunity to get somebody into treatment, but it in and of itself is not treatment. And the second thing I learned is that I was woefully unprepared for the job of parent of an addict. Relatively smart guy, great medical training, knew very little about addiction. So over the next couple of years in my own obstetrical practice, I kept seeing more and more patients who were coming in either on methadone or Suboxone, using, withdrawing. And so I learned a lot about it, and I started actually my entree into addiction medicine was through pregnant patients, which is probably not the best group to learn on, but that's all I had. So I would take care of them for the 9 months they were pregnant, and I eventually had to transfer them to other care, and the care was just so bad. As an obstetrician, I was held to the standard of being right 100% of the time. That's all I had to do, was every decision I had to make was right. And when I looked for addiction care, this was about 2007, it was horrible. So I ended up forming Middlesex Recovery, which is an addiction treatment program in Woburn and Chelmsford. And 5 years ago I stopped delivering babies, and 3 years ago I stopped surgery, and last year I stopped gynecology completely, and I work now as a board-certified full-time addiction medicine specialist. And one of my real important goals is to educate the public about addiction. And it goes from people in this audience. I've spoken to the Sheriff's Association in Massachusetts. I've spoken to the District Attorney's Office. I've spoken to colleges, because there's a lot of people out there making decisions for patients with addiction that don't know a lot about addiction. So if you leave here today, hopefully you'll know more than when you walked in the door. So for the next couple of minutes, I just want to go over some basic information about addiction. But the way I'm going to do it is I'd like each of you to pretend you're the patient sitting across from me in my office. I find that patients who understand what's going on in their bodies, what's going on in their brains, and how the medicine works, do much better than the patient you just say, take this pill, take this medicine, don't do drugs. So, again, just pretend you're the patient sitting across from me. So the best way to start a discussion or an explanation is with something everybody knows. So, has anyone here heard of the word endorphins? Okay, good. And we can start from there. The word endorphin is actually two words stuck together. Endo means inside us, and orphan means morphine-like compound. So endorphins are morphine-like compounds that our brain naturally makes. And it works in a lock and a key system. So if you think of the endorphin as a key and the endorphin receptor as a lock, then if the key fits into the lock, then some other action happens in our brain depending on where these receptors are. And there's two main parts of our brain that have these receptors. One is right next to our spinal cord, and that helps to manage pain. So it makes sense that if you have injured yourself and the pain impulse goes up through your nerves and through your spinal cord into your brain, the part of the brain that's responsible for affecting or changing that pain impulse is right next to it. The second part of our brain that has these endorphin receptors is what we call the limbic system of our brain. And the limbic system is the pleasure center of our brain. Now, we have a pleasure center in our brain because God, Mother Nature, whoever you believe in, wants us to repeat certain activities. And it's based for survival. So the way you get someone to repeat an activity is to make it pleasurable so they want to repeat the activity. So the obvious first example is sex. So if you had sex for the first time and you said, I am never doing that again, we would be extinct. Instead, you spend most of your adult life trying to repeat that activity. Same thing with food. Dinner pill, steak at Ruth's Chris, I'll take the steak anytime. Eating is a pleasurable experience. So we have this limbic system because it's necessary for us to repeat certain activities. And the gateway into this pleasure center of our brain is through this endorphin receptor. Now, we have found things in nature that will also stimulate this endorphin receptor, and we call those things opiates. We've been talking about them all night. So, if you were to go to Afghanistan, get a poppy plant, take the seed pod, dry it out, and make a slit in it, a brown liquid would come out. And that brown liquid is called opium. Everyone's heard of opium, I assume. Now, there's some naturally occurring compounds that exist within opium. The number one is morphine. Morphine was named after Morpheus, who's the Greek god of dreams. So even back then, they knew that this substance puts you in a dreamlike state. Morph means to change. So morphine causes your brain to change. The second is codeine. Codeine is what's in Tylenol number 3. Codeine is what's in cough suppressants. And there's a third substance that I'll get back to in a minute called thebaine. But these naturally occurring compounds that exist within opium are called opiates. O-P-I-A-T-E. Now, if you were listening to the news in 2004, 2005, everyone would be talking about the opiate crisis. The opiate crisis. Okay? Well, we're not really having an opiate crisis. We're having an opioid crisis. Opioid is O-P-I-O-I-D. The word opioid means opiate-like. And these can be divided into two categories. They are either semi-synthetic or completely synthetic. Something that's semi-synthetic, you start with a parent compound and you add things to it or change it. So if you think of the parent compound as the potato and Mr. Potato Head, then what happens is you add the different things to the potato to make some new looking creature, and that's the same thing that's happening here with opioids. So you start with a parent compound, let's say it's codeine, and you change it and you create some new compounds. So some of the more common prescription opioids are oxycodone, which is in Percocet, hydrocodone, which is in Vicodin, hydromorphone, which is in Dilaudid, oxymorphone, which is in Opana. So all these are semi-synthetic opioids. Now, just as a quick history lesson, back in about 1850, there was a German pharmaceutical company named Bayer, and they used to make a substance called salicylic acid, or collect a substance called salicylic acid. And what they did was they went out into the woods of Germany and they found the bark of a white birch tree and they scratched the inside of it and they collected this salicylic acid. And they sold it as a pain reliever. One of their scientists decided, let's make a better salicylic acid. So they took an acetyl group, which has a bunch of hydrogens and carbons, and they added it to the salicylic acid, and they made a much better pain reliever. And that pain reliever today is known as aspirin. Okay, if you look at, if anyone's in the medical field, the abbreviation for aspirin is ASA, which stands for acetyl salicylic acid. So in about 1885, there was a major morphine epidemic going on. So the people at Bayer decided, we're going to make a better form of morphine. So they took the morphine molecule and they decided to add 2 acetyl groups to it. And they created a compound for which the goal was to make something that was stronger and less addicting than morphine. So they produced this substance. It was sold over the counter for about 15 years. And does anyone know what the brand name of that substance was? Heroin. That's where heroin comes from. Heroin was initially produced by the pharmaceutical company Bayer as an alternative to morphine for something that was going to be less addicting and stronger. So they got it half right. It's stronger, but unfortunately it's not less addicting. And so by 1908, an act was passed by Congress which made controlled substances that put everything behind the counter. So that's where heroin came from. Now, heroin is a semi-synthetic opioid. You start with the morphine molecule, you add 2 acetyl groups to it, you have a new compound. Now, as I said a little while back, there's another category called a completely synthetic opioid. Now, something that's completely synthetic, you don't need any kind of an opiate to add to it. You make this compound by taking a bunch of different chemicals and mixing them together. And the most common synthetic opioid is fentanyl. Okay, so fentanyl is completely synthetic. And because you don't need the morphine molecule, you don't need Afghanistan. So most of the fentanyl that's produced in the world is produced in China, and it either comes directly from China or goes to Mexico, and then comes into the United States. Now, there's something called potency. Potency is how strong a pain reliever is. And everything is measured off of morphine. So morphine is given a score of 1. So something that is less powerful or less potent than morphine gets a score of a half or a third. So something like codeine would have the score of a half. Heroin, which I said is stronger than morphine, has a score of 4. So heroin is 4 times as potent as morphine. And fentanyl has a score of 100. Okay? Which makes it 100 times more potent than morphine and 25 times more potent than heroin. Now, when I do a history and physical, and I see the patient the first time, and I'm taking their history, I just write a P, I make an arrow, I write an HSN, I write an arrow, and I write an HIV. And all I do is put the ages underneath. So the P stands for Percocet. Percocet is, as I said, is the compound that contains oxycodone. So where does all the Percocet come from? Well, we've heard some reference to it, but Mike had mentioned pain is the 5th vital sign. And what that means basically is back in about 1995, insurance companies decided that pain was an important enough identifier of quality of care that they decided that they were going to start paying hospitals based on patient satisfaction for pain. So that's when they get this, you see the smiley face where the person gets browner and browner, frowns more and more until they're crying. So they started quantitating pain as one of the quality measures, and hospitals were paid on how well the patients felt their pain was being managed. When I went to medical school, there was no such thing as pain management. It's only in the last 10 or 15 years that pain management has actually existed. So, and for the importance of this group, the 2 biggest prescribers of pain medication are dentists and orthopedists. And unfortunately, they are also the specialists that adolescents and young adults are most likely to see. So, when my daughter was 14, she weighed about 100 pounds, twisted her finger playing hockey, went to the doctor, had a tiny little procedure done. She got 60 Vicodin. My wife went to the doctor and said, someone screwed up her prescription because my daughter got a prescription for 60 Vicodin. And the doctor said, oh, no, she's going to have a lot of pain for that finger when she has rehab. Now, this was a newly minted, newly trained orthopedist. So, everyone just has to be on guard as far as getting those prescriptions, okay? When I was an obstetrician, I did about 1,000 C-sections, and everybody left with the same prescription. Everybody got 15 5-milligram Percocets. So 15 times 5 is 75. So that's 75 milligrams of oxycodone. And everyone would go home and we'd see them back in a week, and I always asked them how their pain is, and are they still taking a medication? 90% of women who had a C-section, and most of the people in the group know what a C-section is like, they did not ask for another prescription. And the other 10% would want a prescription. And so my alarm would go off my head if either there's something wrong with the surgery, or the patient has an issue with pain medication, because 90% of people, 75 milligrams of oxycodone is enough to recover from major surgery. And just to let you know, when I see a patient in the office, the average patient is taking about 150 milligrams a day of oxycodone. So that's when you hear people abusing Percocet. There are certain things called Perc 30s, which were the big thing maybe about 5 years ago. Before that, it was Oxy 80s. Oxy 80s was designed for people with terminal cancer to control their pain. That's 80 milligrams of oxycodone in one pill. When they became tamper-proof, it became Perc 30s. Now, the next arrow goes to HSN. HSN stands for heroin snorting. Okay, snorting it or basically taking it intranasally. I write the age of that, and then HIV was heroin intravenously. Now, you measure Percocet to heroin snorting in years. 18, 23. You measure heroin snorting to heroin IV in weeks or months. And no one ever goes backwards. It's an economic decision. Percocet costs about $1 a milligram. So you're talking $100 to $150 a day for Percocet. You can get the same effect from heroin probably for about 25 to 30 years. So, it's an economic decision, and no one ever goes, well, I used heroin for a while, but now I'm back on Percocet. You need to know what to look for with your kids. Okay? Now, you didn't do hidden in plain sight, did you? Okay, there's something called hidden in plain sight, which is, sometimes it's in the mall. It's basically a display that they have of a child's room and all the different things you should be looking for in your child's room to know whether they're having a problem with substance abuse. I'm sure it'll be at one of the malls around here. It's worth some time. I just have a little story to tell. My mother lived in San Diego for about 15 years or so. I'd fly there, see her, and it's about a 6.5-hour flight. So you get on the plane and you kind of size up the people on either side of you to see, what your flight going to be like. So I size up the people, and it always gets to, how are you? Fine. What do you do? Blah, blah. I'm a physician. So I'd always make that decision. Do I want to spend 6.5 hours talking about gynecology or addiction? Because each of them could be a 6.5-hour flight discussion. So, a couple times ago, I decided I was going to go the addiction. So the guy sitting next to me, I was in the window seat. So the guy sitting next to me goes, that is incredible. You're sitting next to me. I said, oh, that's nice. And he goes, my son used to have an addiction problem. I'm like, oh, this ought to be good. So, somewhere over Cleveland, we're talking over what we're, going on with his son. And his son used to have this problem, so the son's doing great now. And, he's 23 and, still lives at home. And, but he's doing good. He's got some new girlfriend we're not too crazy about. But he's still doing good. So I finally stopped him and I said, I just want you to answer these 3 questions honestly. He said, okay. I said, does your son ever have any money? He's like, well, he works in a restaurant. He gets paid cash. He never seems to have any money. He's constantly borrowing $20 for this, $20 for that. And I keep saying to him, you should have the money. So that's number 1. I said, does he eat a lot of candy? He said, he does. His room is such a mess that we've had to take the door off. I'm like, you think your kid's doing good? You've already taken the door off of this room? But I said, okay. And the third question is, are you missing any teaspoons in the house? And he said, as a matter of fact, when he was younger, we were missing forks and knives, and those all just went out with the pizza box when the kid is just too lazy to open the box and just throw the whole box away. He says, but now we don't have a lot of teaspoons. I said, but I've never met you other than an hour ago, and I've never met your kid, but I would seriously consider going back and reevaluating whether your son had an addiction problem. And so I say all those things just because all those things were very visible. He knew all of those things. I didn't, challenge him for something he didn't know. He just couldn't put it together. That all of those are warning signs that something may be going on. Nobody wants to believe that anything's going on with their kid. That, Johnny's going to be perfect. But in reality, most of the things, when you look back as a parent or a caregiver for somebody with addiction, is you probably could have figured it out sooner than you did. So one last thing. Okay. So I just want to go over the brain of a child for a couple of minutes. When a baby's born, the brain is about this big. And between age 0 and age 12, the brain grows a tremendous size. But most of the growth that's involved there is what we refer to the gray matter. And the gray matter of the brain is the cortex of the brain, and that is the part of the brain where you basically store knowledge or information. So you learn how to walk, you learn how to eat, you learn the alphabet, you learn all those things up to the age of 12. You know that saying, everything I need to know in life, I learned in grammar school. So pretty much it's true. Somewhere between age 12 and age 22, the white matter of your brain develops. And the white matter is the myelinization, which is basically the circuitry or networking that goes on in your brain. And that has a lot to do with executive functions. And executive functions are decision-making, time management, prioritizing, reasoning. All of these things are executive functions. And they're what basically turns an adolescent into adult. And it's all about decision making. The problem is that the brain is also extremely vulnerable to damage at this point. And basically, once you start chronic use of substances, whether it's marijuana, whether it's alcohol, whether it's opiates, whatever it is, because if you think about it, this is just a little aside, but almost everything that we abuse is plant-based. Alcohol, marijuana, tobacco, cocaine, opiates, mushrooms. Almost everything we abuse is plant-based because we basically, as little creatures, went out into the forest and said, okay, what can I find, eat, smoke, inject, put on my tongue, that's going to change my brain. But anyway, changing my brain also arrests that executive function development. So all of a sudden, you have someone who is been using drugs for 10 years, they're 27 years old, but they make decisions like a 17-year-old. Except they have adult responsibilities, they have kids, they have a job, they have people responsible for them, but they make these decisions as if they're 17 years old. So, my advice to you is as much time as you can spend getting your kid to maybe 20 will pay off for the rest of your life. Because it's that point where issues start and they make decisions that just don't seem to make sense to you. And one of the main reasons for it is because their brain basically stops developing as they begin to abuse drugs. There's lots of treatment out there. There's medical treatment, there's psychiatric treatment, and there's counseling. And anyone who's going to be successful in their recovery needs all three. Okay? And I can't under-stress the importance of counseling. Counseling, almost everyone I meet during the day could use counseling. And that starts at breakfast table. So, I'm a strong proponent of counseling. The counseling is not where you breastfed as a baby. Counseling is about how do you handle stress, anger, disappointment, fear. In addiction, it's about avoidance skills, refusal skills. These are the important things. I always tell people if you master avoidance skills, you don't have to worry about refusal skills. But they used to say that it was much harder to be an alcoholic than an opiate addict or an opioid addict. Because alcohol is everywhere. And you really have to go out and look for drugs. And that's not the case anymore. So, all of these skills are important in people's early recovery, in their late recovery, and also someone who's starting to dabble and start beginning to use. Mental health, if people live in the state long enough know that, before there were every town, not every town, but every little region had their own mental health hospital. I don't know what was out here, but in the North Shore was Danvers. Danvers was this big state hospital. Then the prison population was really small, but the state mental hospital had this large population. Then they closed all the mental hospitals. They cut, benefits. Anyone's here to try to find a good psychiatrist? Next to impossible to find a good psychiatrist. But now, undertreated mental health is one of the leading things that's attributing to the opiate problem. So, if you have someone, a kid home that you think they're depressed, they think they're anxious, get them help. Because almost everyone with a substance use problem has a dual diagnosis. And it's one of those chicken and the egg. So, that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Now we'd like to have a question and answer period. We have 2 portable mics. Where are our 2 young people who are going to do this? Evan? Okay. And Molly. Awesome. We're really pleased to have our SAD group here. This is Students Against Destructive Decisions. You see them in their t-shirts. We're really happy to have their help today. Evan is an intern from the Parker School here helping us tonight. So if you would like to raise your hand if you have a question, and one of these guys will bring the microphone to you. If you have a question that feels personal and you don't want to say it out loud, I believe you were given a 3x5 card that you could write your question on and then just pass it to one of these guys and they'll bring it up and read it.
What if I'm in a public place like Walmart and I see someone unconscious? And maybe there might be, like if there's a lot of people in the store, there might be someone nearby who has Narcan. How would I know if the unconscious person, what are the signs I would see if it were due to opiates?
I got it. Okay, so essentially what happens in the brain is that the opiate or opioid that's being ingested goes everywhere in your body. It doesn't just go to the limbic system, it goes everywhere. One of the places it goes is in your brainstem, basically your respiratory center. And in your brain, opioids are a respiratory depressant. So when somebody overdoses, they stop breathing. Okay, the heart doesn't stop, but they stop breathing. So one of the things you can look at is the person heart beating. Okay, when someone has a heart attack, their heart stops. When someone overdoses, the heart continues to beat for 5, 6, 7 minutes, even when they stop breathing. Narcan is not going to hurt anything. So when in doubt, Narcan. Okay? If it's not an opioid overdose, they're not going to respond, but it's not going to have any negative effects on them. Okay? Narcan is a great medicine. It comes in multiple forms. There's some that you can inject, intranasal. They come with special kits. It's available, I believe, in any pharmacy without a prescription. Most insurance companies will pay for it. And being at an overdose is a frightening experience. And so, when in doubt, if the Narcan is available, or Narcan them. You can do sternal rub. There's different things that you can do to try and arouse them. But most people who overdose don't have another good reason to be laying down on the ground, not breathing. So I would assume it's an overdose. Again, with some air flaws and things like that, you're not going to hurt them anyway. But if it's available, and essentially they're just not breathing, so they get cyanotic, they get blue, and eventually their heart stops. That answers it.
Hi, I have a question. My son's been everywhere, from here to California and Florida a couple times, Cape Cod, and it just seems it's never going to end. Is that something your place in Danvers, was it Chelmsford? I'm talking to the doctor. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I mean, what is my
Okay. So
next move?
There's multiple levels of treatment. The most important thing you need in treatment is someone who wants to be in treatment. Okay, so you can't love someone into treatment. You can drag them, but you can't make them drink. So eventually they want to have it. They want to have it. Then there's the way that I look at it is there's multiple progressions towards treatment or towards recovery. Okay, the first thing is to get them to stop using. Okay? Keep them safe. Get them safe. So that may be sectioning them. It may be a 30-day program. It may be just getting outpatient treatment. Outpatient treatment, there's 4 different basic treatments. One is nothing. Okay? Someone who decides, I'm just not going to use it. Okay? The second is something called methadone. Methadone is a federal clinic program. So you have federally licensed treatment centers. There must be somewhere under it. Fitchburg, I guess, or Worcester? Okay. Methadone is a medication that's taken daily. It's dispensed in liquid. Comes with counseling. Has gotten a bad name over the last 20 years. Not that it deserves it. But it is the longest available, for the longest time it's been available. Okay, some people call it liquid handcuffs because you got to go every day, every morning. You may meet some unsavory people at the program, but it basically stops cravings, stops withdrawals. Okay, methadone is an opioid. It is a semi-synthetic opioid. Some people say it's substitution therapy and you're just substituting one drug for another, but no one ever says anything about it. You know, insulin is substitution therapy for diabetics. But for some reason, addiction, addiction is a pediatric disease. Most patients who develop substance abuse develop it while under the care of a pediatrician. We see the adult manifestations of a pediatric problem. The second treatment is something called Suboxone. Suboxone is something called OBOT. OBOT stands for office-based opioid treatment, as opposed to methadone, which is clinic-based. So in our program, we dispense Suboxone. Suboxone is a medication that's taken every day. It's taken under the tongue. It, again, is a semi-synthetic opioid. Okay? Stops cravings, stops withdrawal, stops use. So now somebody's on a medication, then they're no longer using. You can't overdose from Suboxone. You can't abuse it.
And is it true that if you're on Suboxone, you can't take other drugs? If you tried to take...
You did, would just work less.
I thought that was...
No, you don't get sick. But there's competition for that endorphin receptor. One other real important point. Has anyone here heard of opiate receptors? The opiate receptor and the endorphin receptor are the exact same thing. We have just renamed it. Okay? So God didn't make an opiate receptor just in case we tripped over a poppy plant in Afghanistan. That's not how it works. We basically hijack our natural receptors. So every time you hear of an opiate receptor, you should really be thinking that's the endorphin receptor. I have opiate receptors in my brain because everyone has endorphin receptors. So Suboxone, there's no real time limit on it. There's no real negative side effects. Doesn't cause any major health problems. And people be on for a while, they eventually taper off. While they're getting any of this treatment, you need to be getting counseling and have your mental health taken care of. So many patients are, slip into substance abuse because they're treating underlying depression, anxiety. My son always said, this was after we found out what was going on. He said, as a teenager, he felt like he never had the owner's manual for being a teenager. Everything was so confusing to him. But once he started using opiates, he just gained a lot of confidence. Everything seemed clearer to him. Other people will talk the first time they used an opioid, like a Percocet, they knew they were different. They just knew it gave them a feeling they'd never had before. There's something out there called Vivitrol. Has anyone heard of Vivitrol or naltrexone? Okay. Vivitrol is an opiate receptor blocker. Okay, so where methadone and Suboxone actually stimulate the receptor a little bit, but that stops the craving and that stops the withdrawal. Vivitrol, which its active ingredient is naltrexone, just sits on the receptor but doesn't stimulate it. But if another opioid comes along, it can't get on the receptor, so it's an opiate receptor blocker. Okay? Now, naltrexone is not an opioid. It does not stimulate the receptor at all. To a certain extent, you can think of it like relapse insurance. Because what happens in a relapse is, they always say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so nobody thinks they're going to use, no one's going out that night, they're going to a bachelor party, they're going out drinking. Biggest relapse day of the year, Christmas Eve. Everyone always seems to be at their aunt and uncle's house, looking down the basement, I'm with my cousin, I never know they use, and all of a sudden they whip out something and there I am, and I couldn't stop myself. So, what happens in a relapse is, I use once, I'm never going to do it again. 2 days later, I use again. Within 2 weeks, I'm full-blown, addict again. You're always an addict, but you're an addict in use. So the way naltrexone works is basically, if you use, you get nothing. So if you do have a lapse and end up using, it doesn't work. So the next day you wake up and say, I'm an idiot. I can't believe Dr. O'Connor told me it wasn't going to work. I still did it. That's how, crazed I am for this. But it didn't work. So they don't fall into that continued use. But all of those treatments need to be accompanied by peer support, AANA, professional one-on-one counseling, and good psychiatric care. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I have one more. I just want your opinion on this. My opinion on this kind of addiction is they're looking for their first high, like to repeat it, and they just never seem to do that, and they continue on. But that's just my opinion. But I mean, I just want your opinion on that statement.
Most people think that when an addict is using, it's like 4 Chardonnays at a wedding. I'm feeling good, I'm happy, this is great, everything's wonderful. It's not like that. I did a talk, I'll have to use this bottle. I gave a talk at BC High, and I was trying to explain to 700 16, 17, and 8-year-olds about addiction. Okay? So, I didn't have any props with me, so I decided to explain it like this. Imagine you're at a dance, and you meet the most beautiful girl in the world. She's got a great body, she's beautiful, she'll do anything you want, and your friends love her. I'm like, this is the perfect thing. The problem is when she parts her hair, tattooed on her forehead, is 6 months of pleasure, 10 years of misery. Now, you may look at her, size her up and down, and go, you know what? I'm passing on this one, because that ratio of pleasure to misery is just not worth it. Now, unfortunately, opiate addiction doesn't come with that tattoo. So most people go into it either accidentally through prescriptions or attempting to get that first high. The problem is the ratio of actual pleasure, because there's something called tolerance, where it requires more and more and more to get the same high. And all of a sudden, there's a phrase that they use in addiction, it's called trying to get normal. And what that means is, without the drug, you are just so miserable that when you use, you're not getting high anymore. That was the first 10% of your use. The last 90% is I'm just trying to avoid withdrawal symptoms. And withdrawal symptoms can be as easily explained, the exact opposite of use. But it's the worst flu of your life. Times 10. But the problem is the cure is sitting right on your dresser. So the question is, if you had the worst flu of your life, and you knew that you took that pill on your dresser, and it would make every symptom go away in 5 minutes, how many days would you lay in that bed before you would take that pill? So the thing that drives continued use in opioid addiction is not the high. It is the withdrawal symptoms that are associated with the lack. Does that make sense to everybody? Because that's real important. Everyone thinks that people are high, like it's a good thing, like they're happy, like they're selfishly happy. And I'm doing this despite the fact that I'm making the rest of my family miserable, but I just want to be high. They're not getting high. Or if they do get high, they're maybe high for a minute or two. They're getting rid of those withdrawal symptoms.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just to follow up real quick as well. But that's, that's exactly what it was. For me, when I first identified withdrawal, that's when my habit completely really took over the decision-making process in my life, because I was driven on that fear, that fear of withdrawal. And that's when, it became a part of the process, and not to get high, but just to feel normal, just like Dr. Connor was saying. So when I went to Bentley, in order for me to show up to football practice, I had to put something in my body to feel normal to be able to participate. In order for me to go to class, I had to put something in my body to not feel those withdrawal symptoms. In order for me to go to work, I had to put something in my body to not feel those withdrawal symptoms. But the problem with that is the more I'm taking, the more my tolerance keeps increasing, the more expensive this habit becomes. And all of a sudden, when I'm doing prescription opioids, which cost $1 a milligram on the street, and I'm taking up to 600 to 800 milligrams daily of OxyContin at that time to support my habit, it becomes more time and more energy every single day focused on not feeling the withdrawal symptoms, focused on making sure I'm not going to be sick, which means less time at school, less time playing football, less time going to work, less time with family, and it controlled every aspect of my life to the point that it made economical sense, as you had mentioned, to start using heroin one day because it was a cheaper substitute. But the reality was my tolerance kept increasing. And it didn't matter how many resources I came up with. Ultimately, it cost as much time and energy as I could possibly come up with to make sure that I was supporting my habit and not feeling sick and withdrawal. And just kind of to your question, this is my experience and my experience only, but I went through a process of trying multiple forms of treatment, and I never say any of them failed because they all served a purpose. I learned so much through the way in each one of them. I had to make mistakes. I had to learn. I had to understand exactly what the real problem was, because I looked at the drugs as the problem, and ultimately I would think that as soon as I take the drugs from the equation, I'm fine. I can go back to playing football, I can go back to school, I can finish, I can graduate, and I can do all these things in my life that I know I'm fully capable of doing, because I didn't really understand what the real problem was. So I was looking for a quick fix solution. So when I got on Suboxone, I took it as such. I took it as a quick fix solution. I take a pill and everything's better, but the reality of the situation is that wasn't the case. I started selling the Suboxone. Suboxone has a street value to it, and you can sell it, and ultimately I use that to support my habit. And I would say out of all the medication-assisted treatments that I've been on, and I've been on them all, Vivitrol for me is the one that I probably lean towards the most in terms of supporting it, because there's no street value to it. You can't sell it. It's not something I had to take every single day. It was a shot. But when I took the Vivitrol shot, I took it like it was a cure. I take this shot, it's an opiate blocker, I can't use, problem solved, I go on with my life and everything's fine. But I didn't work on the real problem, just like the doctor was mentioning in terms of, I didn't include the counseling component, which was there to address the real underlying issues, the reasons why I use, the reasons why I self-medicate, why I cope with life the way I cope with it. And ultimately, what ended up happening is, just because I can't take an opiate doesn't mean I can't take something else in replacement to try to fill that void, to try to self-medicate with. And I transferred my addiction from what I couldn't take to what I could. So I started implementing other drugs that I was able to take, and ultimately, eventually, it led me back to my drug of choice. I would say one of the biggest challenges with me through the process of trying to get better is any time I started to address the opioid addiction, the reality was that I didn't include alcohol in that equation. I didn't include marijuana in that equation. I didn't see the harms produced with those types of drugs. I thought in order to be normal, in order to have fun as a young 20-year-old kid, that I needed to go out and have a few beers and reconnect back to the person I was in high school, and that was completely okay. And I was just like those friends who I was trying to re-engage with, and I was no different than them. And that wasn't the case at all. I didn't see alcohol as an immediate threat, because when I was using opiates, I never drank. I never spent any money on alcohol. I spent all my money on supporting my habit. And ultimately, I said, I don't have an alcohol problem. I'm never even drinking. But all of a sudden, when I started to get clean from opiates, I thought that in order to feel normal, I needed to have alcohol in my life again. I needed to include that as part of the process for me to be happy. And the reality of the situation is I wasn't like those friends. I was different. My brain was wired different. I had hijacked my brain, and I had to put everything down. I had to give it all up. I had to build relationships with people who understood me, understood the disease of addiction, that I could identify with, that I felt like they were like me, and ultimately I had to learn how to have fun without putting something in my body, and that was a very challenging process. But ultimately, I found out along the way that it is very possible. I found out that I was missing out on so many things in my life because I felt like I had to put something in my body to experience them. You know, and ultimately I was able to go back to school and finish my degree. You know, I was able to get married, I was able to have kids, I was able to raise them as a sober father, I was able to see my father get sober in his life as well, and I was able to see the miracles of recovery happen. And just in terms of the question with Narcan, I just also want to mention that Narcan provides an opportunity. It's not a cure. It saves a life. It gives somebody an opportunity to get help, for you to have a conversation with them. But what's challenging with addiction is you're dealing with a very small window of willingness. Somebody could be willing to go to treatment. They'll do anything it possibly takes to get help. They'll go the extra mile. And if you don't get them help immediately in that situation, an hour later you can go to that same exact person and they'll say, I will absolutely no shot in at all. I'm going to go anywhere to get help. You know, so it's important when you have somebody that's struggling, a loved one who's struggling with a substance use disorder, make sure you have a plan. Because part of the definition of crisis is being disorganized. So if you want to avoid crisis, you need to be organized. You need to get as much information as you possibly can. Educate yourself about treatment resources. There is a ton of information in the hallway for resources that are in the communities, and come up with a game plan. Because we do a lot of work with interventions, we do a lot of work with families, and a lot of the times families, they take it upon themselves to have the conversation with their loved one. And let's say it goes the way you want. Let's say you talk to your son or your daughter, and you say, we're worried about you, we think you have a problem, and they say, you're 100% right, I do have a problem and I need help. And you say, well, I don't know what to do now. I don't know how we handle that information. Let me go and figure out what options or resources we should get in order for you. And they go and do their due diligence, and they come back to their loved one, and that person now is not willing to get help. So you want to capitalize on that moment of willingness and move them in a direction before they have a chance of changing their mind. Because when I went through the process of going through programs, and I tried so many quick fix solutions in my life, the problem of it was, the reason why detox by itself has a 99% failure rate is because I didn't even understand how sick I was. I didn't understand how sick I was till the drugs were removed from the equation long enough for me to even get to a moment of clarity. And that was about 14 to 21 days completely drug-free. And that was the point of my life when I first became willing to take suggestions by the people in my life who were appropriate to be given those suggestions for me in terms of what treatment was the best. And that's what's wrong. The problem with the way treatment works is it's treated acutely. We clinically stabilize individuals and we discharge them with no follow-up care in mind. And we send them through this revolving door of going in and out of these short-term programs, so people don't even get to that moment of clarity to understand how sick they truly are. Either they choose to leave, either there's no bed available for them for another level of care, or their insurance cuts out and they say, sorry, we're not going to authorize you for any further level of care. So my recommendation is try to engage somebody in long-term treatment, because it's a chronic illness. It needs to be treated as such with a long-term continuum care as long as you possibly can in order to increase the chances of recovery as best as you possibly can.
I hate to wrap this up. So interesting. I think one of the things you've heard just now is what a huge problem this is. It's like a big puzzle with lots of pieces, and it can be kind of daunting to wade through all the treatment options. What's first and what's second and what comes when. If you look at your program, on the inside, in addition to the names of all of the vendors on the right, we have also given you up on the left-hand top the names of some clinicians who have been very helpful with us in the ROAR process, helping us learn about this. And I want to suggest that you might contact one of them to help you wade through the choices and to talk about the person that you care about, where they're at, and what might be useful. So if you see those on the top left, there are also some links in there, one for the district attorney, and also some links from the Wahlberg people about dropping off prescription medications. Again, the helpline is great. It'll offer all kinds of choices, but I found that sort of overwhelming. So I do want to encourage you to use some of our people up on the left. They've been great, and they're not competing with each other. They're not here for your business. They're here to help you find some solutions. I want to thank our panel. Each one of you, some of you came from some distance, and appreciate your brave willingness to get up here and share of yourselves. It's not easy, but I think this is going to make a big difference to somebody else's life. I hope we have brought you some new awareness, some new information, and some resources. I'd like to thank some people. I haven't recognized all of our dignitaries in the audience because I know if I try, I will miss some people. But I do want to thank Loxie Combs, our superintendent, and Jim Marino, our chief of police. Who helped us get this conversation going back last January to begin to think about what we could do. I also would invite you, if you have questions that maybe were not answered, to use the form that you received with your program, to fill that out, and when you leave, one of our teams will have a basket for you to leave that in, and we will try to respond to your questions as best as we can. And if you actually did the bingo game, you can put that form in the basket, and we will get to you after we do the drawing. We won't do that here tonight. Lastly, I want to thank the ROAR Task Force team. This group has been working so hard over the summer. It's been the most amazing group of people who just have brought their gifts and talents to this task. And did everything so efficiently and so quickly. And they're listed in your program, I believe. I'm not going to read all of their names. You can read them on the back, but I would like to ask them to stand. Wherever you are, if you're on the ROAR Task Force team, would you stand? Thank you so much. This group has been wonderful. We have one last request of you. It's an ask for you to take home. Would you share with other people what you have learned here tonight? And would you go to our Facebook page and like it and share it? And let's keep all of this going. It's Facebook.com/LunenburgRoar. All right, gang, have I left anything out? Right, I think I said that to fill out if you have a question. I think there are comments for us, what was useful, and so forth. What would you like to know more about? So if you would leave that with us, because this is just a beginning. We're not stopping. You were done. Not done yet. This is just a beginning. We'll see where this awareness and information takes us as we try to move forward with this problem. Thank you so much for coming tonight.